everyone, welcome to chapter 4. In this chapter, we are actually going to talk about CSS style, and we're going to learn about this CSS style, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets. So basically, this is also a part of a language that we can use to describe the formatting of a document that is written with HTML5. So HTML actually provides the structural foundation of our web page, and then we use these style, the CSS style, to actually help developing the formatting of our web page. So some of the objective of this chapter is to actually explain the importance of separating design from the content. And also we're going to talk about what is CSS, Cascading Style Sheet, and then we will talk about the inline, embedded, and external style, which is basically, maybe some files that you can create separately from your HTML5, and then we are going to talk about describing a CSS rule and also its syntax, and we will also talk about the difference between a selector property and value. At the end of this chapter, you should be able to create a style that can use text and color properties, and also be able to explain the difference between inline and block content. Also, you should be able to help explaining about the CSS box model and how you can apply the margins, padding, and as well as borders. Also, as part of your lab, you are also going to create an external style sheet, and then you're going to somehow link it into the HTML page. And then we are also going to talk about the float an image, and also create a style that use list properties. And also we will talk about why we need to have comments to our style sheet. And then the last step, the same way as we validate the HTML file, we are going to validate the CSS file. So these are some of the objectives of what we are going to talk about in this chapter. So as I described to you, so what is a style? Basically, a style is a rule that defines the appearance of an element on a web page. Up to here, up to these chapters, we actually created a website, and you actually created a website for Forward Fitness Club, and we talked about how to put the content in there, put a link, and create some about page and contact us. But we didn't actually focus on formatting to help us, make the page look good. So in this chapter, actually we're going to work on the same project, but we're going to enhance our website by using the CSS file. So the style sheet, as I mentioned, it's a set of CSS style rule, and it can provide some ways to separate the style from the content, and it gives us a flexibility to redesign and as well as rebrand our website. And also we can make changes, like when we are creating a CSS style sheet, we don't have to there is a way that you can make it so you don't have to apply it to every single page. So basically you can create, if you want to have it in maybe one file and create, your background color, the way the text that's going to look like, and also other formatting that you want to apply to it, and then it will actually save time and less maintenance in terms of developing it. So a single CSS style sheet contains the defined style that can be attached to several web pages and apply this style to all the attached web pages. So we are going to talk about various ways of how we can use the style. One way is that CSS support inline. So it is used to add a style to the start tag for an element, such as heading, paragraph. You can use the style attributes. So basically this is showing you the inner style. So for the heading, so you start with h1 tag, and then you can define, the font color. and things like that in here. And then you need to actually end your h1 h tag. One other thing that you need to know about the in style, that they take precedence over other type of style, and they can affect this style for an individual piece of content. So when do we use this? We use it and it's going to be helpful for when we need to format only one section of web page in such a unique way. So the inline style actually defeat the purpose and advantages of separating the style from content. So I just said, like, if you want to use it just for a specific part of the paragraph that you want it to be unique, maybe you can use this, but it's not a best way to use it for everything. There are other style sheet that you can use, other methods of a style sheet that you can use. So the second one is embedded style sheet, which sometimes we call it internal style sheet, which can include the style sheet within the opening head and closing head tags of the HTML document. So this is the example here. So we are going to use the style tag to start styling our page. And this is the style rule. So inside the body, you can put the background color green, for example, and then you need to make sure that you end your style tag. Another one is called external style sheet, which we sometimes call it link style sheet. It is a CSS file that contains all of the style that you want to apply to more than one page in your website. External style sheet is basically a text file with the .css extension. To apply an external sheet, you can link it to a web page using a link tag in the head section of your web page. This type of external style sheet gives you the most flexibility to be able to change your pages quickly if you need to change the format of them quickly, because these style you can create an external style sheet that can apply to every page that you link it to. So changing the look of an entire website is called basically reskinning your website. So you can create an external style sheet and then apply it that way. So as I mentioned, you can put it here and then in your website. So the style rule is again inside the body, and then you can create a .css file and then link it to the document. And I'm going to show you later on how you can create the external style sheet, and you need to also create it for your lab. So let's talk about a style sheet precedence. So basically a style sheet are said to be cascade because each type of a style has a specific ladder of priority in relationship to the other ones. If you create an in style, for example, to change the color of heading to red, in the head section of a web page, you can create a style in an embedded style sheet to change the H1 heading to blue. And in external sheet, you can create a style sheet to change the H1 heading to green. So what color would the H1 heading be in the page with the inline style? The answer is there would be red, because the style closest to the content take precedence. In other words, the in style, as I mentioned before, can beat the other type of style, can beat the embedded style, and then the embedded style can beat the external style. So you need to take this into the consideration. Other thing that we can see here, CSS properties, they can be inherited from a parent element. So we call this inheritance principle. For instance, if you have a paragraph and headings, it can inherit the font and color rules from the body selector. If the selector has more than one CSS rule, then you need to specify which CSS rule to apply. The more a specific selector is applied, So for instance, if the value of the background color of the property of the body selector is green, but the one for the P is blue, the P element will have a blue background color, because the P selector is more specific than the body selector. So this is important. Again, you need to think into the consideration that the P, the paragraph selector, is more specific than the body selector. So the best practice is to apply inline style when you want to control the style of content within one pair of HTML tags. An embedded style sheet when you want to change the style of one page. An external style sheet when you want to apply to many or all the web pages. So this is just important to think about the priority that they take in place. So the best practice, again, is to apply the in style when you want to control the style of your content within one pair of HTML tags. You use the embedded style sheet when you want to change the style of one page. And if you want to change the style of many pages or all the pages, the best way is to link it with a external style sheet, this is more common. So each CSS rule consists of a selector and a declaration. So the selector, for example, it could be body, it could be, it could be P, and then you have your declaration, which would be, the style that you want to specify. So as we said, the selector is a part of a statement that can identify what to style. And any HTML5 elements such as body, navigation, menu, footer, or header, it can be a selector. So if you want to format the content in the body section of the web page, you can use body as the selector in the style element statement. A selector may also be the value of an ID or class attribute. For instance, if you want to format the content by using div ID equals container section, you can use the #container as the selector as well. The declaration defines the exact formatting of the style. So the declaration can contain a property and a value that is separated by a colon, followed by a semicolon. So we use background dash color column, and we use the value green, and then we put the semicolon. So this is basically a declaration. So the property identifies the style quality or characteristic that you apply. So one of them could be maybe, as we mentioned, color. Another one that we mentioned, background color. Also text indent, border width, file style, font style. All of this could be a property. So for each property, the declaration includes a related value that can identify the property value that we are going to apply. So for the font color, maybe we can use green. Maybe for the font size, we can use 200%. So we can use a certain value with each property based on the style that property can define. So again, in here, let's look at all these definitions that we talked about. Body could be a selector. This is the opening bracket. Then we have this. So this is the declaration. And then this background color by itself is the property. And then the formatting is color, and then the value. So the value for the background color could be, green, blue, navy, or if this was maybe a text, maybe this was a font size, you could put another, like maybe the size of it based on, the percentage, or maybe, if it was, basically if it's an image, then it could be in pixel, and then you put the semicolon. So these are basically the common text property value that we use, and then the values that can come with it. So the font size, this is one way of saying it, this is another way of saying it, or you can say it as this. And then, for example, the font style, again, you can use various style like that. Or the color, again, you can use this. So these are just some common type properties and values that you can see in here. It's also important to learn about what's the fallback values. So these are basically additional values that we call them. So if the browser doesn't support the primary font, it displays the second font family indicated. And if the browser doesn't support the second font family, the browser uses the next font family, and so on. CSS measure font sizes using different type of measurements, such as including pixels, points, EMs, and maybe sometimes by keyword or percentage. And this is the table that you can see the measurement units. So the EM is a relative measurement unit that the W3C recommends for value of the font size property. The size of EM is relative to the current font size of the element. So if we say 1.25 EM, for example, it means 1.25 times the size of the current font that we have. If the browser display paragraph using maybe 16 points, text by default, a font size property of 1 EM is 16 points, and 1.25 EM is 20 points. The next thing that we are going to talk about is the CSS colors. So basically, HTML use color names or sometimes code. There are two types of color codes which we can use, the hexadecimal and RGB. When we are using a color name, we specify the words, such as black, blue, as values. There are 16 basic color names that they are using. And if you go to w3schools.com, you can see the color names. There are various color names that the W3C recommends. Hexadecimal values, though, on the other hand, consist of a 6-digit number code that correspond to RGB. RGB stands for red, green, and blue. So these are the color values. To use a color in a style rule declaration, we use the color value as the property value. For instance, to style a background color as gray, we use background color column, and then we use the pound sign before the code. So hexadecimal is a combination of a base 16 numbering system which can include letters from A to F. So as you can see, these are the hexadecimal coloring here. And then if you want to go through that, the first 2 digits indicates, like if we have the 00 maybe, it can indicate, sorry. Okay, let's go back here. So we have, for example, in here, the first 2 is basically 00 indicates the red value. The next 2 digits, 00 indicates the green value. The last 2 digits, FF, indicates the blue value. So because the FF is the highest 2-digit hexadecimal number, this is actually blue. You know, this can be blue. And so this is how we kind of read the hexadecimal. So the RGB notion is used to display colors and a green through not in a print. RGB blends red, green, and blue color channels to create the color that we have. So this is it for the first part of our presentation. In the next part, we are going to talk about the inline elements and block elements. For now, see you.